So, really quick for my international viewers, Mosteiro da Batalha, what is this? This is a large church and monastery that exists in more or less in the center of Portugal, that was built as a celebration for the victory in Aljubarrota. So, in the 14th century, Portugal was suffering a severe succession crisis. There was a great risk of Spain to take, at times Castella, of taking control of Portugal. So what happened is that there was a large war fought between Portuguese forces and Spanish forces, defending different sides of the succession, and this culminated in the Battle of Aljubarrota, a large pitched battle in which the Castellans were definitively defeated. And to celebrate this, the king ordered the construction of this monastery. It's interesting because Aljubarrota is probably one of the key battles of the Middle Ages. It was fought, as I said, between Portuguese forces, loyalists, and Spanish and pro-Spanish Portuguese forces. It also involved British forces on the side of the Portuguese and French forces on the side of the Spanish. This is really interesting because when the battle was fought, the Spanish and the Portuguese were actually stood in the field in Aljubarrota, not far from here, stood on the field like eyeing each other, waiting for something to happen, while the Portuguese dug trenches. And while this was happening, the Spanish actually sent cavalry around the battlefield to flank the Portuguese and strike the command center, actually, the main encampment, to attack the king and the supply lines, so the Portuguese won't be able to fight anymore. However, the French cavalrymen, which were young knights that were sent to prove their worth in Portugal, they were actually very anxious to enter the fight and prove what they were worth, so they could go back and reclaim their heritage in France. And despite the orders of the Spanish king, they actually attacked the Portuguese lines, and which kind of forced the rest of the formation to go into the battlefield. As this happened, the knights, it's really interesting. There's a museum in Aljubarrota where you can see a movie that kind of makes a reconstruction of these events, and it shows how the French, as they attacked the Portuguese lines, they noticed that they were being flanked by the Portuguese and the British cavalry. And as they did this, but it was already too late, so they went on and they fell into the Portuguese trenches. So the Portuguese infantry moved ahead and started to flank and massacre these young knights. As they did this, the rest of the Spanish forces, the infantry, came ahead to support and try to relieve the knights. And as they did this, the Portuguese cavalry went around and boxed in the Spanish infantry, and the massacre started. It was an entire afternoon killing Spaniards, like killing. What happened was, when the Spanish cavalry finally reached the Portuguese encampment, the Portuguese cavalry was able to move around and strike them before they could do any relevant damage, because the rest of the Spanish forces were dead in the field. So as they did this, the Spanish were simply forced to retreat and accept defeat. The Spanish king was actually really sick, and he wasn't able to control his own forces, and this was just a complete disaster. The new Portuguese king, Dom João I, he was able to rally his forces and pursue the Spanish and forcing them out of the Portuguese territory. This was a great victory. This guaranteed that the Portuguese will remain an independent nation until today, and they built this wonderful church as a celebration for that victory. Hope you learned something. See you later.